Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Graduate Certificate in Mind-Brain Teaching virtual webinar. My name is Tyree Maddox, Admissions Coordinator at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also presenting today, I have my colleague from the Office of Admissions, Sion Jian, who is the Assistant Director of Admissions. And also presenting today will be Dr. Roniji Johnbull and Dr. Marielle Hardiman. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Please take a second to see if your mic is on mute right now. Please have your mic on mute and video off at all times during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. At that time, we'll ask that you type your questions in the chat box and we will read and answer your questions. I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then our presenters will go over the details of the grad cert in mind-brain teaching. Lastly, I'll wrap it up with the admissions requirements and leave the floor open for questions at the end. Again, please keep in mind that we ask that you type your questions in the chat box at the end of the presentation. So to start, quick facts about Johns Hopkins University School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at the Johns Hopkins University, and we began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,367 students enrolled and offer more than 27 graduate programs. Those include doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs, and we have a strong network of over 22,000 SOE alums. Dr. Johnbull is the Assistant Professor of Mind-Brain Teaching and Doctor of Education programs. She joined faculty in 2014 after a postdoctoral fellowship. She is a PhD from University of Virginia, and her research focuses on teacher efficacy, cultural competence, social contexts of belief change, neuroeducation, professional development, and arts integration methods. Dr. Hardiman is the professor and co-founder and director of Johns Hopkins Neuroeducation Initiative. She's also the faculty lead for the Graduate Certificate in Mind, Brain, and Teaching, and she joined JHU faculty in 2006. She has her research and publications focus on enhancing educational practices through techniques that foster innovation and creative problem solving. She presents nationally and internationally on topics related to the intersection of research in the learning sciences with effective teaching strategies, including meaningful integration of the arts. And now I would like to turn it over to our faculty.
Thanks so much, Sion. We appreciate it. We really are excited to have our participants here today and to learn a little bit more of our certificate. So we'll go on to the next slide. There we go. So why would you do this graduate certificate? And you see these circles bouncing up, and I'm going to start with the top. It's to advance your practice, knowing more about how the brain thinks and learns, cognitive processes of memory and attention, emotion, creativity, really helps you in any field at all. And certainly in education, because we are a school of education and we're about educating children and adults. And that's not only in school districts and in school systems, but also in corporate centers, trainers. People have also take this certificate because they want to be a leader in the field. And leadership really does require a really broad spectrum of knowledge. And if you're going to be leading in an educational or related field, this knowledge is really helpful to understand human learning. There's so many policies now that are looking at the learning sciences in order to inform policy decisions. So if you're interested in school policy, whether in a nonprofit or for-profit entity, that this is something I think that you would enjoy. A lot of our students are not in classrooms, but they consult either in school districts or in their own consulting companies. And then many pursue it just because it's lifelong learning. Reminds me of a student that I had last semester who just retired from having his own law firm and a very long career in the law, but he's a lifetime learner. And so this was something that interested him. So it was so nice to welcome him and others like him into our courses. So who are these folks? So let's go to the next slide. So many of our enrollees are pre-K to 16 educators. They're in schools, they're in classrooms, they're counselors and principals, school leaders, assistant principals. We actually have a lot of higher education professionals, and some people already have doctorates. They hold a doctorate, but they're interested in the content to make their own courses more robust. We're getting more and more organizational leaders in our program. And as I mentioned before, if you are someone who is interested in leading an organization, whether it's an educational organization or a nonprofit or business, more and more of our students are coming from those fields. Consulting is another area I just talked about. Parents are so interested, and especially with COVID, parents have become their child's teacher. And so we find a really amazingly strong interest from the standpoint of parents in the work we do. And then, you know, those who are involved in any kind of education, whether it's face-to-face or online. And as you know, speaking of online, our program is fully asynchronous and online, and we'll get into the structure of that in a little bit. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So this is a certificate program. It's not certification, so that's different. It's a certificate. It is 15 graduate credits. That's 5 courses, and you'll see the courses and the sequence and some alternate sequences that we're now providing. So we look at research from the learning sciences and what research has the potential to inform the field of education. You know, educators don't have time typically to go through all of the research journals, especially journals that are in other fields like cognitive science and psychology and neuroscience. And so what we do is to bring that information to teachers in a usable form. And so everything that we do integrates these diverse disciplines around human learning and development. And, you know, in the second bullet, you can see there the different fields that contribute to our work. And again, in every course, we ask you to consider how this research can be applied in an educational or related context. It is fully online. You'll note and you'll see soon a graph where you can complete it one course at a time. So because there's 5 courses, that would then be 5 semesters. So it's about 1.5 years, 2 academic years plus a summer. And the courses are offered in sequential order, one at a time. That's the traditional way. And we find that working professionals, that's probably a good way to do it. You know, if you have, you know, a job that is rather demanding for you, our coursework does require quite a bit of reading and writing. But we do have students, and probably that number is increasing, who would like to take the certificate in a shorter time period. And so we do allow that, and that would be doubling up. So you're taking 2 courses, fall, spring, and 1 in summer. And so you're done in 3 semesters instead of 5. Okay, so next slide. So this is what we do, especially in the first course, but sort of threading through the courses is an instructional framework, the brain targeted teaching model, which our students have found helpful to them as they look at applying research to practice, to have a framework that makes sense to them, that's cohesive to them, and that they can apply in any context, and really in any content area, from young children to adult learning. So we've graduated many students who are using the model in their instructional practice. Okay, so the work on brain targeted teaching derives from the very first book in 2003, and then 2012. And not only would you be reading that second book, which is the middle picture there, but we do in all courses offer many articles, some seminal articles and some very recent articles in the learning sciences. And so my background is, even though I've been at Hopkins for 16 years and I'm a professor there, before this, in my previous life, I was a school principal for many years in Baltimore City schools. And for me, that has been very helpful coming to higher education, to be able to draw on those experiences as a school principal. So there I am on the playground with my lovely children. So I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. John Bull to give you more detail. Dr. John Bull?
Thanks, Dr. Hardiman. All right, thank you all for being here again. This is our curriculum structure. We actually have several curriculum structures available for you. This is our traditional curriculum structure. So we have a sequence of 5 courses for the Mind, Brain, and Teaching Graduate Certificate. It begins with Explorations in MBT in Mind, Brain, and Teaching, which provides an overview of the learning sciences, where you learn some information about brain structure and function, some information about misconceptions about learning in the brain, and some instructional strategies that are informed by the learning sciences literature through the brain targeted teaching model that Dr. Hardiman was just referencing. And then you move in the second semester to the Fundamentals of Cognitive Development course, where there's a focus on neurotypical development. After that, you move on to neurobiology of learning differences, where the focus is on the spectrum of neurodiversity and the teaching and learning implications of atypical development and different aspects of neurodiversity. In the fourth course, it's the cognitive processes of literacy and numeracy, where the focus is on the learning sciences associated with the literature of those 2 major areas of learning. And this course was developed in response to educators' interests in the 2 main areas that are assessed in the K-12 settings, and these sets of skills and cognitive processes that are integrated throughout our lives and in every context. And lastly, in special topics in brain sciences, there's a focus on emotions, memory, and attention in this course, where we survey a number of different fields that are explored in the earlier courses. We want you to see in this course some of the other areas of the learning sciences that are also applicable to teaching and learning professions in the K-16 contexts and professions that were not covered in the earlier courses in a deep way. In Plan A, you would take 1 course per semester at a time over the 2 academic years, with 1 summer in between. And then in Plan B, if you can flip to option B. Oh, actually, we have another option for Plan A. Oh, sorry, you can, that's fine, thank you. We are adding a new spring 2022 cohort. This is our first year to add, to intake a new cohort in the spring. This group, if you decide you would like to join us in the spring, you would take Explorations in Mind, Brain, and Teaching in the spring, Fundamentals of Cognitive Development in the summer, Neurobiology of Learning Differences in the fall, Cognitive Processes of Literacy and Numeracy in the spring, and then you would finish in special topics in brain science in this following summer. So it would still be 5 semesters, but it would be spring to the following summer of 2023, thanks. And then curriculum structure option B is the accelerated structure. We created this structure in response to a number of students that really wanted to do a faster version of the certificate, and who also wanted access to student loans, and federal student loans, where students have to take a certain number of credits to be able to access student loans. So by offering the accelerated version, you are eligible for student loans. So in this version, you would take the first 2 courses in the fall, the 3rd and 4th courses in the spring, and then that final course, Special Topics in Brain Science, in the summer. All right, the next slide, the curriculum delivery. Right now, our courses are delivered on Blackboard, and we will soon be migrating over to Canvas. Generally, they are asynchronous courses. We do have some synchronous sessions, but those are optional, so that we can offer the opportunity for everybody to access the curriculum around the globe. So while we do offer some synchronous sessions, it is built out as an asynchronous program. And in that asynchronous program, we have video lectures, interactives, discussions, group projects, individual assignments, writing assignments, lots of different fun and innovative and exciting learning experiences. And the next slide are the outcomes of the MBT graduate certificate. So in this, 2 different ways, you will become a research translator in the professional practice, where you'll gain skills for digesting research literature and consuming those weird pieces of literature. You will get to deeply root yourself in bodies of literature that are relevant to your practice. There's a lot of choice in our certificate for you to choose what you want to dive deeply into. And you'll get to produce projects that are immediately informed by research into practice that are relevant for you. As neuroeducators, what you're going to be gaining is essential knowledge concerning the nexus, this intersection between mind, brain, and teaching research. And you will get to leave with tools and projects ready for implementation within your professional practice. And many people are implementing their projects in their professional practice while they're in the certificate. And what's also wonderful for us to hear as you're going through the certificate and after graduates come back to us is that our graduates tend to serve as point people for knowledge from the learning sciences, and tend to be natural, informal leaders in their professional practices and in their schools. All right, the next slide shares a little bit about what our students have to say about the MBT program. I'll just read the second one for you, and you can read the other ones. This program has truly been the perfect marriage of my love for science and my love of teaching. I have learned to be more scientifically literate through this program by being given the tools to analyze and understand human learning and development. And the other ones are also lovely as well. All right. And then our next slide talks about one of our unique features of the Johns Hopkins School of Education master's program is our master's in educational studies for the individualized interdisciplinary program, is that you can take this mind, brain, and teaching graduate certificate and you can combine it with another graduate certificate for a master's degree, which is something that is very special and unlike other schools of education. In other schools of education, you would have to take only one learning specialization for your master's degree. For example, you would only specialize in gifted, or you're only specialize in administration and supervision. But here, you can specialize in 2 different concentration areas, which is very, very unique. And I think one of our distinct features at Johns Hopkins School of Education. And I encourage you to look through each of these certificates are very complementary to the Mind, Brain, and Teaching certificate. All right. And I think I'm going to hand it back over to my colleague, Tyreen Orsian. Thanks.
Dr. Hardman and Dr. John Bull. So now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on the school's website. And please keep in mind, there is an $80 application fee when you submit your application. Next, you will need an updated resume that highlights any academic, professional, research, or leadership experience. Your personal statement should not exceed more than 750 words. Moving on, you should submit 2 letters of recommendation, a scholarly writing, and this is a paper that was written for a prior coursework. And if you do not have an appropriate example of a scholarly writing to submit, as an alternative, you may instead write a brief essay. Please visit our website for additional information on the alternative writing sample. And lastly, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you're an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score, and if your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. And here on the slide, you will see a breakdown of the tuition for this academic school year. The tuition cost is $926 per credit, and the estimated tuition is $15,065 for 15 credit hours. And please note, additional fees apply and are charged separately from tuition. And we encourage you to view our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. And we do offer a limited number of partial need-based institutional scholarships each year that range from $500 to $1,500 per semester and are applied to tuition expenses beginning in the fall semester. To see if you qualify to apply for the endowed scholarship, please visit the grants and scholarship page on the school's website. Thank you for attending the Mind, Brain, and Teaching virtual webinar. At this time, we would like to open up for questions.
Looks like maybe we covered everything. I don't see anything in the chat. Feel free to chat in if you don't want to, come on live Zoom.
We do have a question. The first one we have from Ginger is, if you begin in the spring of 2022, can you do the accelerated version?
Yeah, we can make that work. That will be just a slightly different sequence than typical because of just the courses that are already in place. But yes, we contextualize it for you if you want to do that. For sure. Just make sure you let us know. So Camilla Mika Sims is our coordinator, and she will send you a program plan, and then we'll just decide, what sequence of courses that you'll take. You're most welcome.
Hardman. And we do, and while we wait for additional questions here, in our Office of Admissions, we do get some frequently asked questions. The first one is this an appropriate course for someone who is not working in the education field and but has an interest in the field, in mind, brain, and teaching?
Yeah, I think that in our presentation, we shared how many people from other professions are coming into the program and leaving successfully and applying really everything that they've learned. So absolutely. You'll find that, a lot of teachers and people from other professions actually learn a lot from the pedagogy that teachers have. We also do, we're running 3 cohorts, but in the 2 cohorts that run simultaneously, we do try to group our students in job-alike course classes and even teams. When we do teams, we try as much as we can for Job alike. Also, because it's asynchronous, we group by location too, to make it easier for you to do teamwork. I don't know, Dr. Jumble, if there's anything more you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, no, that was great.
Okay.
It looks like Jennifer asked, could you start with the certificate program and then continue on to the doctoral program? You would still need to apply to the doctoral program. And I believe in the new admissions criteria for the doctoral program, you could. Our current admissions criteria for the doctoral program are that you could take the MBT certificate, but you would need to apply to a different specialization. That may or may not change in the new admissions cycle. That's still, there are some changes coming, but they're still yet to be determined. But so if you take the MBT certificate, what we encourage people to do is to apply to the doctoral program, but to choose a different specialization because the course content is very similar. And then what our graduates from the certificate do is that they apply their knowledge from the certificate in their dissertation and throughout their coursework in the doctoral program. Actually, one of my advisees currently is a graduate from the certificate who is in the leadership specialization in the doctoral program. So absolutely, you can move from the certificate into the doctoral program, just in a different specialization. Thank you for that question.
Okay, here's a two-part question. What is your typical cohort size? And while we will be taking courses online, will we also have access to faculty for like office hours if we have questions?
Oh, Dr. Hardiman, you're muted.
Oops, sorry. I'll start with the second part of that. Absolutely, we are available to students. In fact, in most courses, we hold synchronous sessions, especially before assignments are due. If people, have some questions. In fact, I have one tomorrow with my class. So, and Dr. Jumble and I frequently teach this two different sections, but the same course. So we often combine so that students can get to know each other across the courses as well. But we also do individual, especially right before assignments. Some people just really want to chat about, their assignment topic. And so, we both do spend a lot of time individually with students as well as in the synchronous sessions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we try to be responsive to students' needs. I mean, our office hours are as needed. So, we do a lot of email and then also, as needed synchronous sessions, but we try to not make them, required because of our students being around the globe and that time zone issue. Thanks for that question.
Okay, and I get this question a handful of times when I'm speaking with students on the phone. And the question is, are there specific jobs attached to this My Brain teaching certificate? I understand that it gives you the expertise in the field, but are you guys aware of, if you have this particular expertise, it kind of aligns you for this particular career opportunity?
That's a very interesting question. To my knowledge, outside of programs in higher ed, and there are more and more programs that are modeling what we do here. They may call them educational neuroscience programs. The names may differ, but it's similar to the program we started actually about 11 years ago. So other universities are starting to do some of the similar things. So, there might be faculty positions in this space or teaching assistant positions in this space. In terms of school districts, because this work is really contextualized within what you do, the curriculum that you teach, the students that you teach, unlike like a reading specialist, right, who has a degree in reading, and that work is just focused on either small groups of kids or teacher training. I don't know of neuroeducation specialists that have joined school districts. So, you know, in terms of a job, you know, I don't see that happening really. Again, this is really about teaching and learning and best practices in that, based on not only education, but on neuroscience and the other fields that we've talked about.
Well, I would just, can I add on to that a little bit? I
Sure.
would agree with Dr. Hardiman completely. And what does tend to happen for our graduates from the certificate and the doctoral degree is that people tend to look at our graduates as resource people, and they tend to move into both informal and formal leadership positions within their organizations. They're not like specific job titles per se, but they it's like jobs are formed around them because of their new knowledge and their new experience and their new resources that they're able to bring to their professional community. So they start doing professional developments for their colleagues, and they start doing book studies for their colleagues, and they start helping in different ways and leading in different ways. So for example, one of our graduates had her organization did create a learning science specialist for her. Granted, it was an independent school, so they have the ability to create that kind of a position. But there are, I think what is unique about this body of knowledge and information is that it is applicable in so many different professions, and our graduates use it in a variety of different creative ways. And they're recognized in their professions and in their context for that. And it advances their careers and in a variety of different ways. One that we should measure, Dr. Hardiman, and report on. Yep. Thanks for that question.
So, you know, as Dr. John Bull said, you know, the jobs take on many forms, but I can tell you too, off the top of my head, a number of people who have become instructional coaches in their schools. Just like Dr. John Bull said, for the independent school, these actually were public school individuals who, you know, that instructional coach helping teachers design proper lessons and being able to manage children has really, many of our students have moved into positions like that, instructional coaching.
Thank you for that question, Tyrene.
My pleasure. So the other great thing about this certificate is that it can be combined with other grad certs. And of course, the onus would be on the student to actually view our list of grad certs to see what you qualify for. But it can be combined, for example, with the urban teacher certificate, for example, to make what's called a customizable master's degree, in which we call interdisciplinary. And so that's also something to keep in mind. There have been scenarios where students have started out with the grad cert and realized they, you know, were interested in the full master's and were able to combine the two. And there are two pathways. The best way to learn more about the interdisciplinary program is to visit the website. And I'll also add a link here in the chat as well.
Thank you, Tyrene, for that. The next question we also get is, because obviously you guys get a lot of students who are working full-time, right? And then going to school, you know, part-time. So approximately how many hours do you think are your students allocate per week on coursework?
Well, I think we'll both answer that, but I have to say that most of our students are working professionals. I really don't know any right now who are not. They all are in profession. So they are managing to hold a full-time job and still, you know, be in our program. The hours is probably individually, I mean, Dr. John Bull, you may want to say, you know, 10 off the top of our head. You're listening to lectures, you're reading, and you're responding often in a discussion prompt, or maybe bring some sort of product that you're uploading. And, and then there are assignments. So some people need more time to read through everything and others don't. So, that's kind of individual according to your own learning style. Dr. John Bull, do you want to weigh in here?
No, I think that's about right. 8 to 10 hours is the average that people report. Yeah.
All right, so it looks like there are no more questions. And here on the slide, we have some important contact information. Any admissions related questions, please reach out to my colleague Tyrene. And any program related question, here is Dr. Marielle Hardman's and Dr. Ranjini John Bull and Camila Mika Sims contact information. Thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.